Behind the flickering candlelight and heavy curtains of plantation mansions, shadows stretched across floors, hallways, and furniture, hiding a reality that polite history refused to name. In these dimly lit corridors, some women wielded a power that left invisible scars, their authority exercised in ways so filthy, so unspeakable, that it was erased from memory. Behind locked doors and hidden rooms, acts of sexual coercion and manipulation occurred, where enslaved men and women endured horrors for which there was no outlet, no testimony, no justice. What secrets did white mistresses bury behind these walls? And how did they use their authority for pleasure, at the expense of those who had no choice, no voice, and no means to escape? These are not stories of distant fiction. They are the hidden, disturbing realities of plantation life, a dark underside beneath the veneer of refinement, wealth, and propriety. In the 18th and 19th centuries, plantations stretched across the American South, vast estates where wealth and brutality coexisted. Magnificent mansions rose above manicured gardens, their grandeur a testament to the power of their owners. Nearby, the enslaved lived in small, overcrowded quarters, their days dictated by labor, fear, and the whims of those who controlled them. Within the household, white mistresses occupied a unique position of authority. Publicly, they were paragons of elegance and refinement. Privately, some exercised their power in intimate spaces, exploiting their control over enslaved men, women, and children in ways that were hidden, cruel, and sexual. What occurred in the shadows was deliberately excluded from records, hidden from history, yet it shaped lives in ways both immediate and generational. The system of slavery was a machine of control, encompassing physical, social, and psychological domination. Enslaved men were constrained by force and law, their bodies driven by labor and punished for any sign of resistance. Yet white mistresses held a subtler, more insidious form of control within private quarters. They manipulated, coerced, and intimidated, using fear and social isolation as tools to enforce submission. The plantation system did more than exploit labor, it created conditions for hidden abuses, where power could be wielded in secret and victims left trapped in silence. Behind closed doors, in attics, kitchens after dark, and secluded bedrooms, horrors unfolded that history largely ignored. Survival required compliance, and the consequences for refusal were swift, brutal, and often invisible to outsiders. Within these hidden chambers, sexual crimes were committed with calculated secrecy. Diaries, letters, and oral histories reveal a grim consistency. Coercion, manipulation, and intimidation were wielded for the private pleasure of those in control. Enslaved men endured these acts, knowing there was no recourse, no ally, no safety. The abuses were invisible to public scrutiny, leaving victims trapped in silence and shame. Privacy became a weapon, intimacy became terror. The psychological toll was immense, leaving internal scars that could not be healed by time, nor acknowledged by a society determined to preserve appearances. Survival required not only obedience but careful navigation of the desires, moods, and whims of those wielding private power. The impact on the enslaved was profound, invisible, and enduring. Humiliation and fear became constants, eroding self-worth and dignity. Physical exhaustion and injuries were common for those who resisted, and the emotional burden of compliance weighed heavily on the soul. Intergenerational trauma emerged, affecting perceptions of masculinity, trust, and personal agency among descendants. The suffering was hidden behind the veneer of plantation life, invisible to the outside world, and deliberately excluded from historical accounts. How can we honor voices that were silenced for centuries, whose pain was rendered invisible by the very structures designed to protect the powerful? For generations, the abuses perpetrated by white mistresses remained unacknowledged. Polite society refused to imagine that women could wield power in such dark, intimate ways. Yet, through painstaking research, historians and descendants began to uncover the hidden truths. Diaries tucked away in attics, letters long forgotten in libraries, and oral testimonies preserved by families revealed a pattern of coercion, manipulation, and sexual exploitation that had been deliberately erased from public memory. Positions once interpreted as favoritism were re-examined as instruments of control and abuse. Slowly, the hidden history emerged, exposing acts that challenged the comforting narratives of innocence and refinement. What does it mean when the truth finally confronts the myths? It forces us to acknowledge the victims, their suffering, and the audacity of those who abused the power entrusted to them. The revelation of these hidden crimes sent shockwaves through both scholarly communities and descendant families. Disbelief, moral outrage, and unease rippled across generations as myths surrounding white womanhood were dismantled. Stories of male victims, long excluded from the historical record, finally demanded attention. Communities confronted the legacies of their ancestors, wrestling with shame, guilt, and the recognition that cruelty could exist behind even the most genteel facades. These revelations compel society to grapple with the uncomfortable intersections of power, gender, and race. And yet, countless stories remain unspoken, waiting for the light of scrutiny to illuminate the private horrors that occurred in the hidden corners of plantations. Isolation and privilege warped the exercise of power within these households. White mistresses, constrained by societal norms in public, found freedom to exert control in private. The intersections of gender, race, and social hierarchy created secret spaces where frustration, desire, and dominance intertwined, producing abuse that was intimate, deliberate, and psychologically devastating. Control became both a coping mechanism and a conscious exertion of authority, allowing women to dominate those who had no means of defense. These acts were horrifying, unforgettable, and calculated, revealing the corrosive potential of unchecked power. Understanding these abuses does not excuse them, but it illuminates the complex dynamics of authority and oppression within plantation life. Even amid the darkness, acts of resilience and subtle resistance emerged. Enslaved men navigated these treacherous dynamics with remarkable ingenuity and courage, preserving fragments of dignity even under extreme duress. Small gestures, a glance, a carefully chosen word, a coded refusal became acts of defiance, assertions of humanity in a world designed to strip it away. Oral traditions, whispered stories, and family memories preserved these accounts, ensuring that even when the horrors remained hidden, the resilience and survival of the enslaved were never entirely erased. Every act of survival was a reclamation of self, a quiet victory against the machinery of oppression, and a testament to the strength required to endure what society preferred to ignore. As sunlight filters through broken shutters, illuminating dust-filled halls, the spaces themselves tell a story of abuse, manipulation, and silent suffering. Empty rooms, decaying furniture, and abandoned corridors are not just remnants of a bygone era. They are witnesses to the horrors that history long refused to acknowledge. To honor these stories is to confront the full scope of slavery, including the private, sexualized abuses that occurred behind closed doors. The evidence demands recognition, remembrance, and reflection, for in acknowledging the full truth, we honor those who suffered and survived. The walls of plantations kept their secrets for centuries, but the truth, finally unearthed, cannot be ignored. These are not abstract tales of cruelty. They are the lived realities of enslaved men and women, enduring terror and manipulation in spaces where power was absolute and observation non-existent. The sexual crimes and psychological coercion perpetrated by white mistresses are a stark reminder of the destructive potential of unaccountable power. By uncovering, recording, and teaching these histories, we not only acknowledge the victims but also prevent repetition, ensuring that the lessons of the past inform the conscience of the present. History holds the echoes of those silenced. The sexual crimes of white mistresses remind us that power misused can destroy lives and remain invisible for generations. The shadows of plantation halls, long obscured, now demand our attention. In honoring the victims, listening to the silenced, and acknowledging the hidden abuses, we confront a past that was deliberately buried but cannot be erased. The plantation walls may have kept their secrets for centuries, but the truth, finally unearthed, insists on being remembered, felt, and never forgotten.